I want to mention up front that there's just no way I'll have enough time to adequately um, study a team. And this is really, really basic stuff and general impressions based on a few drives, let's say a half. Um, so yeah, take that into consideration. But this is something I hope to do every week, time permitting, which is just take a look at our opponent and see if we see anything maybe on one side of the ball one week and the other um, in alternation. Um, so I don't look at the run game here. I think that the Cardinals will struggle to defend us versus the run. They got pushed around a little bit, I think, by the Lions' offensive line, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case against us or that that will be the case. But um, we offer a ton more in terms of misdirection, motion, these kinds of things, movement, not to mention the fact that we have Lamar back there. So I do think they will struggle against us in the run game. This video deals primarily with them against the pass. And I point this out in the video, but they are susceptible in the flats based on what I'm seeing in the passing game. Their linebackers are a problem for them in coverage. There's no getting around that. The middle of the field is going to be something that the Ravens try to exploit. One question, if anyone might give me a suggestion, I'm not having any success finding some kind of Illustrator tool or app. So if anybody has any for Mac, if anybody has any suggestions, that would be all right with me. I'd like to sort of draw on these screens a little bit. Yeah, free would be best. But yeah, anything you think is a good tool, I'll check out. So thank you guys. We'll check out how Arizona aligns versus a 2-by-2 receiver set and talk about that a little bit. To the away side, they're going to play man principles with the safety coming down and covering number 2. These inside linebackers, once they read pass, are going to be hook players. That is, they'll drop into a hook curl zone as he reads pass. Before the motion, that's another thing we want to check out on this particular play is how they respond to motion. Before the motion, the Cardinals are playing a pattern match coverage based on the release of number 2. This seems deep to me. That's just a general observation. Once the motion happens, that changes their coverage, and you can see that it confuses them, and ultimately nobody accounts for number 3 out of the backfield. It's really this outside linebacker that's put in a bind. You can see the new number 1 receiver sets up a little hitch here, and the quarterback makes a read based on how the outside linebacker covers, whether he runs to cover this arrow or if he hangs out with the hitch. He kind of gets caught in no man's land. Quarterback makes a good read, and that's asking a lot of a linebacker to get out there and cover this running back. A couple general observations, based on limited sample size. If protection holds up versus Arizona, they cannot hold up in coverage, particularly these inside linebackers. They will not be able to hold up against our slot guys or our tight ends. The other thing I would say is Arizona is much easier to read pre-snap than a lot of teams, in terms of what coverage they're playing. Here we see them against a spread out, empty backfield look. And this looks a whole lot like a deep 4, 3 under coverage to me. And that is what it is. This linebacker cannot let the slot guy cross his face. You can see he's very, very aware of that fact. You can see these receivers go away as well, but that leaves them susceptible here on these outside throws towards the flat, towards the sideline. Again, they get beat that way. So they're doing their darndest to cover here, and it's a perhaps Arizona doesn't mind making a team sort of earn their way up the field this way, giving up 7-8 yards here or whatever they get. But I don't think I'm sure these linebackers can't hold up in coverage. Watch the Lions bring the slot receiver in motion to the strong side. Note the inline tight end. I will point out the obvious that the Ravens are an extremely active team in terms of motion. This is pretty extreme, this coverage here, in terms of it being off. This is going to be easy pickings. The Cardinals are going to ask the outside linebacker also to go out and try to cover here in the flat. So you see them, once again, very susceptible. I'd say that the linebackers are quite predictable in terms of their coverage. They're primarily used as hook curl zone droppers. And if you run a running back at one of them, you're going to see a tight end across the middle. So we'll look for that Sunday. You want to be on the lookout for the Cardinals sending a blitz pressure. It's 3rd and 8. It doesn't look like Detroit's really expecting that. But you'll see, especially with this great depth here, extreme depth of the free safety. The Detroit keeps one of their wideouts in to help pass protect. So looks like a 3-man route. I think based on this, you send him out. If you see this look against maybe a 3rd and 8 down and distance kind of deal. If you think they're coming, you send all 4. Especially with this depth, this middle of the field is going to come wide open. That's the other thing. Even if you send 3, you want your receiver to recognize that along with your quarterback and cut this route in. Here we see the linebacker depth indicating that he's coming. That doesn't mean he will, but in this case he does. We keep talking about these linebackers. This linebacker's late. He's late getting over it, and he wouldn't be able to cover a hitch here, but the receiver runs an out, and he's definitely not covering that. So again, we see just a little bit of hesitation here. Certainly a weak point based on these plays. We get to see the Cardinals defend an RPO, which we're going to see that on Sunday as well. You see the flow here of the linebackers reading run. This is the linebacker that Stafford's attention is to. That's the guy he's reading. Ball's not even right at the mesh, and these guys are on their way downhill. You see again a very deep safety against a 2-by-2 set. This is the defender he's reading. To my mind, this is a sloppy slant this guy runs. He rounds it off, not very crisp, but they do manage to complete it for a 5-yard gain. And that's what they're after there. But I would point out, again, what sticking the ball out into the belly of the back does to these linebackers, coupled with 2 things, the 4 receivers, and then the deep safety, who's deep in response to the 2-by-2. Clears this the middle of the field considerably. And that's something worth watching Sunday.